correct recollection?
Yes, sir.
Here? All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, so state ready,
Yes, sir. State's ready.
defense ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's bring in the jury.
Ready, Judge?
We are.
All right, the jury.
Jury is present and seated. Everyone else may be seated at this time. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning and welcome back. Hope everyone had a nice evening. We're going to pick up where we left off in just a moment. You know, though, every time you leave the courtroom and you come back, I ask you a question or three questions, a three-part question. It's exposure, discussion, or research related to the case. If any of you have done any of those three things, been exposed to any reports about the case, did any research about the case, or discussed the case with anybody, including amongst yourselves, please raise your hand at this time so that we can discuss it. Let the record reflect there are no hands. Again, thank you all very much. As promised, we will pick up where we left off. I'll ask the state to call your next witness.
State will call Joseph Carey.
Joseph Carey. Mr. Carey, good morning and welcome. If you'll come forward, sir, to be sworn wherever you're comfortable. If you'll face me and raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. If you'll follow the bailiff around to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. When you get to the chair, go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. That microphone does adjust. You may proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Carey. If you could please tell the jury your name and spell your last name for the court reporter.
Good morning. Joseph Carey, C-A-R-E-Y.
And Mr. Carey, where do you currently live?
I live at University Place, Washington State.
All right, where? I'm sorry, Washington State?
Washington State, yeah.
Okay, University Place. Where's that?
It's outside of Tacoma, right by where I work. It's a joint base, Lewis McCord.
And who do you live with there?
My wife and two kids.
And you said near an Air Force base. Where are you currently employed?
I'm in the United States Air Force. I work at joint base, Lewis McCord.
And what do you do for the United States Air Force?
I work for NORAD, the Weapons and Tactics Office over there. I'm a Master Sergeant working there.
How long have you been with the United States Air Force?
Since 2001.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Nicole Nachtman?
Yes,
And how do you know her?
she's my sister.
Or is she a full sister or a half sister?
Half sister.
Do you all share the same mother or the same father?
Same mother.
So the victim in this case, Miriam Deans, was your mother?
Correct.
And how old are you now, Mr. Carey?
36.
36, okay. So there's a significant age difference between you and your sister?
Yes.
Do you know about how many years apart you all are as far as age goes?
About 12 years. She was born in 94 and I'm in 82.
And who was your father?
Also Joseph Carey.
Okay. Is he still alive?
No.
How long ago did he pass?
A couple months or 2 or 3 months before my mother.
And how did he pass, if you don't mind me asking?
He committed suicide.
when your mom and dad, did you ever live with them when they lived together?
Yes.
How old were you about when they divorced?
12 years old, I remember, was the deciding factor when we were in court in Houston. I got to say who I wanted to live with. So I remember 12 years old was, at least in the state of Texas, that's where you could decide. So I remember that pretty clearly. So I would
Okay.
say around 12 years old.
So that was in Texas,
Yes.
and you chose to live with your mom?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, if you can get closer to the microphone, let's just make sure that it's on. Jerry's having difficulty, yeah.
All right. Is that better? Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Other than Miss Nachtman, do you have any other siblings?
I had a brother,
Okay.
a full brother.
What was his name?
Kevin Carey.
Kevin Carey. Was he younger or older than you?
He was younger by about a year and a half.
All right, and you said it, you had, so I take it he's no longer alive.
No, he passed in a car accident.
How long ago was that?
2003.
Now, you stated there was an age difference of about 12 or 13 years between you and Miss Nachtman. When she was born, were you still living with your mother?
Yes.
All right, and you were, I guess, about obviously 12 or 13 at that time?
Yes.
And did you all live together during those early years when Miss Nachtman was a baby?
Yes.
Did there come a time when you stopped living with your mother and stayed instead with your grandmother?
Yes.
How old was Nicole at that time?
Let's see, I went to high school in Tampa in around 96, 97. So my sister was probably 3 or 4.
Okay, so at 3 or 4 years old, you chose while you were in high school to stay in Tampa. What was the reason behind that?
So after, without too much background, I guess, but after the mess that I call Houston, when we were in the living condition there with my dad and everything, we finally were able to leave that place, and my sister's biological father, the legal mess that we were in, the problems we had there. And when we finally got back to where all my family was, and I felt a lot better being back here, my mom wanted to immediately go back to Virginia where she owned a house. And to me, that was just a huge mistake, and it was just kind of getting away from our foundation of family and being together and helping each other out. So I just immediately thought it was going to be a mess again. So I wanted to stay where I was happy.
Okay, and so you were happy here in Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
and you were happy in high school,
Yes.
and you didn't want to leave.
No.
So you chose, and your grandmother was okay with you living with her.
Yes.
So Nicole was about 3 or 4 when your mom moved with her to Virginia. Is that right?
Yes.
Was that about the last period in time when you were actually living with Nicole Nachtman on a continuous basis?
Yes.
Aside from the fact you all weren't living together, did you all still remain close, visit, see each other from time to time?
Yes.
Talk via phone from time to time?
Yes.
When your mother was in Virginia, is that where she met Robert Deans?
Yes.
All right, and again, you were still down here with so you weren't present when she met him and was dating him and eventually got married to him. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, you stated you joined the Air Force in 2001.
Yes.
About how long after you had graduated from high school did you join the Air Force?
Immediately, I think maybe there was a month or two between graduation and going to boot camp.
And you've been at the Air Force since.
Yes.
So where were you first stationed when you joined the Air Force?
Hill Air Force Base, Utah.
How long were you in Utah?
Almost 2 years.
And again, while you were in the Air Force, did you still maintain contact with Nicole Nachtman?
Yes.
And as she grew older, would she come and visit and stay with you from time to time?
Yes.
And when she was there, would she talk to you about things that are going on in her life?
Yes.
Did she seem to enjoy the visits that she had with you?
Yes.
Did you feel at that time that you all were close?
Yes.
Now, Robert Deans, did you know him very well?
Not very well, no.
About how many times do you think in total you saw Mr. Deans throughout after your mom married him?
I'd say a handful of times, 4 or 5 times.
Now, when you would visit Nicole, with your mom, did everything seem normal? Did you see any sort of fighting or loud arguing when you were there?
Between who? Say that again?
Just the family? Did you see any strife or anything that caused you concern?
No, nothing that caused concern, no.
In the summer of 2015, did you see Nicole at all that summer?
Yes.
Or when did you see her?
The summer where, before the incident.
Did you see her here in Tampa, or where was she?
No, I was living in Washington State. She visited me out there.
Now, were you already married by then?
Yes.
And you already had your kids?
Yes.
Okay. And how long did she stay with you that summer of 2015?
3 weeks to a month, somewhere in that area.
While she was there that summer of 2015, did she ever discuss any issues with you about your mom?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Nothing, just typical.
Did she ever mention to you that she was concerned about your mom, or concerned about their relationship, or anything that she was worried about?
No.
Did she ever discuss with you any issues at school, or things that were going on at school, problems she was dealing with at school?
I mean, on that specific visit, I don't remember. Typical problems, you know, bullying or whatever.
Okay, so she did confide in you some things, but anything that caused you alarm or concern at that point?
No.
And what was your understanding as to where she would be going in the fall?
Florida State University.
Was that the last time you saw Nicole Nachtman before these homicides?
Yes.
So tell me, Mr. Kerr, when was the first time you heard about these murders?
I was coming off of mid-shift, which is 12-hour shifts we do at my job, where it's like 6:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. And got out around 6:30 a.m. and got to my car, and I saw missed phone calls and text messages. And I called back, and it was my Uncle Eric, and he was crying, and he told me that I thought it was my grandma immediately because he lives in the same area, and she's older. So I thought maybe something happened with my grandma, and then he was crying, and he said, "No, it's your mom," and that's when I found out.
Okay. So when you're on these shifts, you can't have your phone with you?
You can't have a phone in the building.
So you get this call from your Uncle Eric, and he informs you that your mom has passed. Did he mention Robert at all?
Yes. The rumor in the beginning that was...
Object to hearsay.
Also staying at this time. I'll caution the witness not to testify what somebody else said to you unless specifically asked and we have a discussion and I allow it.
Without saying what was said to you, what was your understanding or belief or at that time in your own mind as to what possibly had occurred?
The understanding was that it was a murder-suicide, that Bob had killed my mom and was found with a gun in his hand in his chair, and he had killed himself.
And that's kind of what you had just interpreted from hearing things, and then that's what your belief was?
Yes.
So what did you do at that time?
At the time, I was living on base, so it was a 2-minute drive to my house. So I remember driving home to get to stay on the phone and get a better understanding of what was going on. And then I wanted to call my sister, and I asked my uncle, did anybody call my sister and let her know? And they said that they told her that she had been in an accident and we didn't know her status because we didn't want her driving from Tallahassee to Tampa knowing that her mom died. We were worried of her driving condition. So I called my sister to let her know that, we all love you, don't worry about it, just get to Tampa, we'll figure things out.
Okay, so your immediate concern at that time was for your sister and her well-being.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. And so, as you got home, so that's your first conversation with your sister?
Yes.
How did she sound when you talked to her?
If I remember correctly, it was a lower voice, maybe a little bit upset.
Okay. And in that conversation, did she say anything to you that you recall specifically?
And that first phone call, no, it was more just receiving the information from me. And I think she had already talked to some of my uncles before I had called her too, so she had already been given the news.
And so, according to what you just said, your purpose of that phone call is just to put her at ease, to let her know that you had family and you were coming there and everything's
Right.
going to be okay.
Yeah, she's not alone. She's surrounded by family and everything's going to be fine.
And you said that you got off at 6:30. So, about what time did you call her from your base?
Somewhere around probably 6:45 to 7.
Okay, about what time, East Coast time would that have been?
11-ish. Yeah, I would say around 11 o'clock.
Okay. Now, when you called her that first time and told her that y'all would be there for
Sorry
her,
about that. It's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? Okay.
10 o'clock.
Okay.
Sorry.
So when you called her that first time, and did you tell her at that time that her mother was dead?
No, not yet.
Okay. So what happens next?
So after I talked to my sister and told her I'm working on coming down, I start getting on a computer to see if I can buy a plane ticket to come to Florida. So I'm searching on the internet, and then my sister calls me back, and I answered the phone. I told her, "Hey, Nikki, listen, I'll talk to you in a minute. I just need to get this ticket. There was only 1 or 2 left," because I didn't want to blow her off. Half talk to her and half focus on something else. I wanted to give her all the attention. So I said, "Let me call you back. Give me like 10, 15 minutes." So we hung up.
Let me ask you, what was her demeanor when she called you back that time? How did she sound?
She sounded normal, like, "Hey, Joey,"
Right. And so you told her you'd call her back because
Yeah.
you were in the process of purchasing a ticket.
Yes,
And did you call her back?
I did.
All right, tell us about that. How long after she called you did you call her back?
I guess it was about 15 minutes or so. And I went to the couch and sat down because I had a feeling it was probably going to be a longer call, so I can. If she's calling me back, my mindset was she needed to talk. So I wanted to dedicate time to talking, so I went to the couch to sit down and talk to her.
Okay. And when you called her back, what does she say to you first?
So I answer, or she answers, "Hey, Nikki, just want to let you know again, we love you, miss you, we're going to see you soon." And then she got quiet. She said,
Oh, I'm sorry, one of the jurors is still having trouble.
"Oh,
Yeah.
sorry about that." So, I started off with the normal chit chat. "Love you, we'll see you soon." And then she just was quiet for a second, and then she said, "I'm gonna miss you, Joey."
Just like that, just very matter of fact, I'm
Yep.
going to miss you, Joey?
Yep.
All right. What did you think when you heard her say that?
I didn't know what she meant the first time she said it, and I don't think I made sense of it just yet. And I said, "What?" Something like, "Say that again," or what? She's like, "I'm just gonna miss you." And I said, "What do you mean?" And then at this point, saying it out loud sounds weird, but I was thinking maybe she was thinking of hurting herself because her mom's gone. So, but I didn't want to put words in her mouth, and I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I want to say I said, are you thinking you're hurting yourself now at this point?" And she said, "No, I don't think I'd do that." And I said, "So what do you mean by that?" And then she got quiet again, and then she says, "I shot him." I said, "You did what?" Like, I shot Mom and Bob." I was like, and I remember leaning forward. I remember leaning forward on the couch and saying it again. I was like, "What do you mean you shot Mom and Bob?" I was like, "Why'd you do that?" Or something to that effect. And she just started crying really bad and talking really fast. And I couldn't understand what she was saying. I was trying to calm her down. And eventually I was trying to get her to calm down and make sense of what she's saying. And eventually she got to the point where she was explaining that ever since she got back from London, her school trip, that she's had uncontrollable screaming in her head and like a high-pitched screaming, and that it was affecting her sleep and she was having nightmares from it. And then I tried to calm her down some more, and then she said, if I had only gotten the good news phone call about the dorms earlier, I wouldn't have had to do it. And I didn't know what she meant by that. I didn't know anything about the dorm situation. I didn't know what she was meaning by that. And then she said something that I remember was, I'm sorry I had to do it, but I'm not sorry that I did it, but I'm sorry I had to do it. And then she was, more crying and things like that. And then I remember thinking to myself, well, I don't know what to do now, so I'm going to call my family and have them help me think correctly about this.
All right, now I want to go through this carefully because there were other things she said to you, so I want to make sure we get everything out that she said to you at that time. So you talked about the screaming in her head, the good news about the dorm room. What did she tell you specifically about shooting Bob?
Yeah, she said, and then she went into like a whisper, and she was like, I didn't think I could do it, Joey. I didn't think I could do it, but I shot Bob. I didn't think I could do it. And it was just weird because it was in a whisper and almost sounded like she was proud of herself. I know there was more being said, and I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Did she mention anything about what happened when your mom arrived? When your mom arrived?
So she described after she shot Bob that a lot of the screaming went away in her head. It didn't go away all the way, but it went away a lot. And then she described she went up to her dorm, and she was hanging out in the dorm, and she kept seeing the signs in her hallway and her stairwell saying, your dreams are almost realized, keep going, things like that, like motivational posters. And she took that as a sign from God to go back and finish a job. So then she told me she went back to Tampa and she waited in the house overnight for my mom. And then when my mom got home, she said that she got cold feet the last second and she wanted to get out of the house. So she mistimed it. She jumped out of the window to not meet my mom. So my mom was walking in the house and she wanted to jump out the window and just time it to where she would miss her. And she mistimed it and ran into my mom. And my mom said, Nikki, what the fuck are you doing here? And she said she blacked out and somehow she knows she did it. And then I don't remember if she said she was in the car driving or she was getting to the car to drive away.
Did she ever mention anything about you calling her an animal or something along those lines?
She said you can call me a beast, but don't call me a monster, or something like that.
How did the conversation end?
I just remember saying, like, why did you have to do that? You had options. You could have called your uncle, you could have called your grandma, you could have called me. Why did you have to do that? And I don't know what she said, you just kept crying. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Would you like a glass of water, a cup of water?
I'm okay. I'm okay. So, then I hung up and called my family back to find out. I remember saying, like, are we angry at her? Are we trying to help her? Help me think straight. What do I do? And I think I was talking to my Uncle Kenny, and it was either my Uncle Eric or Kenny, I can't remember, but they talked about it for a while, and they said, we're going to try and help her. And then I said, okay. And then I called her back and said, listen, somewhere in the process here, I knew that they were sending a detective up to talk to her. And I said, listen, when they get up there, just tell them you want a lawyer, don't say anything. And that's what I said. We love you. I don't know when I'm going to talk to you again. And that was it.
Right. Did law enforcement, after you called your uncles and told them what Nicole had told you, did law enforcement ever contact you?
Yes.
All right, and did they ask you what Nicole had told you?
Yes.
And what did you tell them at first?
At first, I asked if she was going to get a lawyer. Does that mean I have to say anything also? And they said, yes, it doesn't extend to me. So I told them everything that she told me. I told them the story that I remembered her telling me.
Okay. And that was a detective from Tampa who called you initially?
Yes.
And did you ever meet with a OSI agent from the base and give them the same story about what happened?
Yeah, the detective told me I need to go over to the OSI now, or pretty soon. He had to make arrangements to meet an agent there so that, they can document the story and all that. So I met with the agent shortly thereafter.
And did you eventually meet with the lead detective in this case, Detective Mitchell Messer, and tell him what occurred?
Yeah, in person when I ended up flying to Tampa.
When's the next time you hear or talk to your sister after that?
I think the next time is literally the visitation before I left town to go back home at the jail.
All right, so you went and visited her at the jail?
Yes.
And how does she seem when you were talking to her at the jail?
Like very happy, very, like nothing was wrong. Like she felt great. She was smiling and giddy.
Aside from that visit, did you visit her or talk to her again?
There was a couple more, 2 or 3 more phone calls after I returned back home through the jail service.
Are you still in contact with her?
Objection to relevance?
Approach.
So you said maybe talked to her 2 or 3 more times after that visit. Have you talked to her since then?
No.
Prior to these murders and all your contacts with your sister, did she ever indicate there were any serious problems at the house?
No.
And if she had, would you try to help her?
Yes.
If I may have 1 moment.
Yeah.
Because we'll pass the witness this time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break before the cross-examination. So please do not discuss the case amongst yourselves with anyone else. Please do not do any research related to the case, and please avoid any exposure to any media reports of the case. All rise for the jury. Jury's exited. Everyone may be seated. Sir, you may step down. I'm going to discuss some legal issues with the attorney. Please do not discuss your testimony with anyone.
Yes, sir.
Can you step out, Judge, just so that?
Yeah, I'll ask, just while we discuss these legal issues. Thank you, sir. Yeah,
That being the case, if we have legal issues to discuss with Mr. Lear's testimony.
absolutely, yeah, give your time.
Judge, my concern, originally was that Mr. Terry was not gonna let me get into, the childhood and things of abuse. However, that was clearly opened up on direct, so I don't think that's an issue as far as the childhood, why he ran away, and the the home life of Ms. Nachtman. Clearly, he went into that, so I don't think that's the issue.
As far as, Judge, and I will say, as far as what he observed with his mom and Nicole, not as far as what he had experienced with his own mom, I think that's irrelevant. That doesn't go to her battered child syndrome.
But it goes to the atmosphere she grew up in. So you can be a battered child for many reasons. So her brother runs away at 16 is what he's gonna say, and he already testified to it because of the stress of what's going on. His mom at the time is going through a divorce from his biological father, and at the same time going through a custody battle with Nicole. She's in that environment, it's absolutely relevant, and it was already elicited on direct. So to now limit what I can ask about that is clearly prejudicial. With regard to, I guess my concern is I believe all of her childhood and everything now comes in because Mr. Terry went into it. The issue now is whether he can now testify to specific acts of abuse or violence, whether it be psychological or physical, that either he witnessed his mom commit against Nicole.
Against Nicole.
Correct. And that's what I intend on asking. So it's gonna be questions about, the belittling, the liposuction, things that, the mom made Nicole do as it relates to what he observed.
Well, let me ask, Mr. Terry, you did ask him, was there any fighting? Did you witness any fighting between Nicole or the mother? Did everything seem normal? Did she discuss anything with you about her relationship with her mom? And then your final question to him was, prior to the murder, did you ever, any serious problems at the house? Did you ever observe something? I can't read my own handwriting. But you asked the question, prior to the murder, did you ever any serious problems at the house? Doesn't that open the door to them if they have specific instances?
Judge, I was just trying to point out that there was nothing he could see, that she never told him anything, any reason why she would have done this. That's all. I wasn't really getting into any abuse he witnessed, any abuse she suffered. Just did she ever indicate any reason why she would have done this? Any problems going on that she would have caused her to kill her mother?
Judge, here's the difference, and this is what needs to be elicited, and I believe Mr. Carey, as previously testified to, will say all these things. To Mr. Carey, and he'll say this, I didn't consider it abuse because I was a strong person and I got out. I could stand up to my mom. What he's gonna say is that his mom would say that their children are a disgrace to them. So in his eyes, when he says things are normal or okay, they were normal or okay to him because he left at 18, he went into the military, and he was able to stand up to his mom. But he has previously testified under oath that his mom would say that their children were a disgrace, that he would belittle Nicole, that she would belittle Nicole, that she would comment on her weight, that she made her get liposuction. So again, the way Mr. Terry characterized the questions to Joseph was, again, trying to paint this perfect picture, which is at all not the case. I'm not going to ask anything that I don't believe he's going to, again, I don't plan on eliciting facts that I don't believe he's previously testified to. These are all things that he's previously testified to and that he observed.
And judges, most of my questions were intending to, since you've already let in much stuff, as you said, because of the insanity, I felt like I had to at least ask those questions, whether or not he noticed anything from Nicole that would give him concern. That anything that she was saying to him that would cause him concern as far as what was going on in the household.
But let me ask you, how do I limit the cross? If the question to him is, did everything seem normal between Nicole and the mother, how do I limit the cross to go into things that may imply that things weren't normal?
Judge, as far as you've already ruled and against the state's position. That's the reason I asked these questions ahead of time. You've already ruled that a lot of this stuff, the liposuction, all of that stuff can come in under the insanity because the doctors relied on it. That's what you ruled earlier.
Well, I hadn't read the depo yet. I have made some rulings. I'd have to go back to see specifically, but I did say that now that they have the insanity defense and they have a different doctor, that whatever that doctor relies on for the insanity defense, most likely I'm going to have to allow in. I read his deposition last night, and he talks about diagnosing her with schizophrenia, hallucinations, delusional, and he says that the symptomology started at 3rd grade. So it does. The insanity expert opens that door. So I agree with you. Whether I ruled that previously or not, I know where we're going to go with that and what I'm going to have to allow. But I'm concerned now about what limitations I place on them on cross. For example, if the testimony thus far on direct is there were, I never observed any fighting or anything abnormal. There was nothing to give me any concern. How do I limit the defense from bringing up things like, did your mother call Nicole worthless or whatever the previous testimony is?
And Judge, that's the thing.
Judge,
cross is intended to go into anything that is, and it can't be limited. If it was discussed on direct, There is no limitation on, once the fact or the issue, you can't mislead a jury and leave it out there that everything was normal and then limit my ability again. Not in any way to elicit facts that have not been previously testified to, but these are things that Mr. Carey has previously discussed in either a deposition, an interview, and or his battered child syndrome hearing. And so, to me, you can't limit the cross now that those topics have been elicited by the state.
Mr. Chair?
Judge, I'm not asking you to limit it exclusively. What I'm saying is, Judge, I don't want it to be a feature. Your Honor, I've been put in a box here with this insanity defense because Your Honor has ruled that on much of this, and in fact you told Ms. Holt this yesterday, much of all these same issues are going to come in because of insanity. And when their witness testified yesterday, you basically let everything in. You let all the hearsay in so I've got to find a way to in some way confront the insanity, but I'm not willing to concede at all that the battered child syndrome and the self-defense applies.
No. Nobody's at that, absolutely. I agree with you.
So I've been put in a situation here, Judge, based on your rulings yesterday with their own defense witnesses and what you allowed in, which was basically everything. That Nicole was scared of her mom, that Nicole and her mom fought. So all of those things came in already. So I felt like if I didn't mention it at least, or at least say that, did you see anything that caused you concern?
Well, I agree. I'm not saying you did anything right or wrong, or that you, but now, so whether it's based on the fact that you asked whether everything was normal, or based on the fact that I've already ruled that they're going to be able to get into it, they're going to be, they have to be allowed on cross to question him about those. You thought it was normal, but didn't this happen? Didn't that happen? If he observed it,
and that's fine, Judge.
Okay.
What he observed, and I understand that, and I'm not gonna really argue that. But I am gonna ask, Judge, that she not be asking him specific instances of abuse he suffered at the hands of his mom, okay? Because that's irrelevant to this charge. It's only what Nicole suffered as a battered child syndrome, as according to them.
Well, that's untrue. So if in fact Nicole knew about specific acts of violence that the mom inflicted on him, and I have case law on that
but
issue.
how is he going to be able to testify that Nicole knew?
He's going to say they discussed it. I asked him in our trial prep that specific question before I asked about specific acts of violence, and Nicole knew about things his mom had done to him. That absolutely goes to self-defense. There's two ways you can elicit character evidence, and I understand the self-defense.
We have an open self-defense.
But I don't want him to think that they're not coming in at all. If we end up at self-defense, I
We're
plan
not
to
there
recall
yet, so they're not
Mr.
coming
Carey.
in now.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
All right?
I think we're all right. I don't know if there's anything that we need to discuss with him.
I don't believe so, Judge.
All right. So let's bring the jury back in and do the cross-examination.
Bring the witness.
Let's bring the witness in first. Yes, thank you.
Oliver to Brian, bring in the witness. Bring it back to witnessing.
Judge, just to clarify the court's ruling, because Mr. Carey asked about his biological father and
Mr.
the fact that he committed Joseph's biological father, he was physically abusive in the home, and I want to make sure if that's fair game or not. His biological father was abusive to him, and part of the turmoil that's going on, and then the biological father was elicited on direct, eventually
What does that have to
commit
do with
suicide.
Nicole? Was Nicole, it was
Well,
abusive
because the
to Nicole?
divorce, okay, so why he runs away, this divorce and all the turmoil that's happening is after she's born.
She's an infant, Judge. She's not gonna know anything about all that. I mean, it's such a stretch to try and put that and then have Nicole testify about or know anything about that.
The point is, why he ran away is twofold. His father was physically abusive to him, and he wanted to get out of the turmoil of this divorce. I don't want it to make it, Mr. Terry almost made it look like he chose to live with grandma because he wanted to live in Tampa and not Virginia. He chose to live with grandma because his father was physically abusive and his mom was in the process of divorcing his father and at the same time in a custody battle with Nicole's biological father. That's the relevance. And I'm not going to ask about specific, what did your dad do, but he was physically abusive in the home.
Again, Judge, I can't see how that goes to Nicole's insanity defense or into her battered child syndrome defense. I don't see the connection at all. It may have something to do with him, but it has nothing to do with anything to do with this case or with Nicole Nachtman.
I agree. I don't see the relevance of, he's testified that there was a mess I mean, if you want to reiterate with that, but go into the specific of that the father was physically abusive to him when there's no indication that that is any way related to Nicole. I don't see, no. I'm
Well,
not
Judge,
sure.
part of the issue too would go to his credit, again, I don't plan on, I hope I don't have to impeach him on any issue, but why you left and why you ran away at 16 was for those very reasons. His father was physically, it wasn't I came to Tampa because I just wanted to be around my family. He wanted to get away from the chaos of his home with his mother, who was at the same time in a divorce with his biological father because of physical abuse and because of the custody
Well,
battle.
here's what
So
you
it
can
is
do.
the environment.
Here's what you can do. I mean, because Mr. Terry, you did get that out. He did testify about moving. You can ask him specifically on cross why. What are the reasons why you stayed with the grandmother?
Okay.
And let's see what he says.
Okay.
Let's bring him back in. Mr. Carey, welcome back. We're going to put you back on the witness stand before we bring the jury in. State ready?
Yes, sir.
Defense ready?
Yes.
Let's bring in the jury.
Ready, Judge?
Yes.
All rise for the jury.
Jury is present and seated. Everyone else may be seated at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, welcome back. You know I have to ask, did anyone have any exposure to the case, discuss the case, or do any research related to the case during the last break? Let the record reflect there are no hands. Thank you all again. You may proceed to cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Mr. Terry.
Good morning.
So your mom had 3 children, you, Kevin, and Nicole.
Yes.
You were the oldest,
Yes.
and Nicole was the youngest, obviously.
Yes.
You had indicated on direct that there was about a 12-year age difference between you and Nicole.
Yes.
And then Kevin and you were about a year apart.
Yeah, a year and a half. Yep.
You had indicated your father committed suicide shortly before your mom's death in 2015.
Yes.
Now, your brother Kevin, who was born, I guess, in 1984, died in a car accident in 2003.
Yes.
And that would have been when Nicole was about 6 or 7?
I trust you. Yes.
What year do you recall Nicole being born?
94.
Okay. Now, Nicole's biological, you had indicated on direct, you and Nicole had different fathers.
Yes.
Nicole's biological father is an individual by the name of Ronald Nachtman.
Yes.
And your mom had met Mr. Nachtman in Texas when you all lived there.
Correct.
And at the time of her relationship with Nicole's biological father, she was in the midst of divorcing your biological father, who is also named Joseph Carey.
Yes.
And this was all happening in Texas when Nicole was very young.
Yes.
I think you said your mom and your father, at least the divorce started about when you were 12. So it would have been right around the time Nicole was born or shortly after.
Yes.
If
I
y'all
think
are
12
12
was
years.
about when it was ending, because I think my decision, whatever, was kind of on the tail end of it all.
Now, you've described that divorce and that custody battle as pretty nasty.
Yes.
This wasn't a disgrace at times.
Yes.
Now, your mom and Ronald Nachtman, Nicole's father, weren't together very long.
No.
So Nicole is born in 1994, and this custody battle and all of this turmoil begins pretty early in Nicole's life.
Yes.
In fact, as a child, you remember your mom and Ronald Nachtman living together for a very short period of time in the home with you, your brother, and Nicole.
Yes.
But they lived in separate rooms,
Yeah, he had his own room.
and that was kind of weird to you.
Yes.
And then after Nicole's birth in 1994, there's a lot of arguing going on in that home before Ronald Nachtman eventually moves out.
Yes.
Arguing to the point where your mom and Ronald Nachtman would get in each other's face sometimes
Yes.
while Nicole was there.
Yes.
You also remember your mom becoming physical with Ronald while Nicole was there. Pushing.
Yeah, I think I remember pushing. Yeah.
So then Ronald Nachtman and your mom's relationship is short-lived. She's at the same time going through the divorce with your biological dad, and Ronald Nachtman moves out.
Yes.
Is that how you remember it?
Yes.
Is it fair to say the custody battle between your mom and Ronald Nachtman over visitation for Nicole pretty much went on through most of her childhood?
Yes.
And ultimately, your mom obtains sole custody of Nicole, and Ronald Nachtman is completely eliminated from your sister's life.
Yes.
In fact, your memory of that time in Texas, and again, you're older, 12 years older than Nicole, that time when all this is happening between your mom and Ronald and your mom and your biological father was an absolute mess,
Yes.
filled with a lot of stress.
Yes.
That's when I believe you testified on direct, as your mom is about to move from Texas to Virginia, you decide you're coming to Tampa to live with grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yes.
that a yes? You didn't, it wasn't really just like a decision that the family agreed upon. You actually ran away from your home with your mother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this wasn't, hey mom, I think it would be better for me to live with grandma, if that's okay. This was, I'm running away and I'm not coming with you to Virginia.
Yeah, it started off with me just saying I want to stay here, and she didn't want that, so eventually I just said I'm staying here.
And you actually physically got out of the car and ran away.
Yes.
Now, at the time you run away from your mom's home, Nicole is only 2 or 3 years old at this point.
Yes.
So while you could stand up to your mom or indicate to your mom, I'm going, regardless of what you say, at 3 years old, Nicole didn't have a choice, did she?
No.
Now, you begin attending high school in Tampa while living with your grandmother.
Yes.
And at the same time, Nicole is up in Virginia living with your mom alone at this point. Because
Yes.
Kevin has already passed by then. Or
No,
do you,
no.
Kevin's still there.
Kevin's still there.
So Kevin and Nicole are in Virginia together. And it's about 1996 or 97 when you run away to live in Tampa with your grandmother.
Yes.
And then you never lived with your mom again after that period of time?
No.
So at this point, when you run away and choose to live with your grandmother, you're about 15 and Nicole's about 3. Is that your recollection of the ages?
Yes.
So it's fair to say when Nicole's 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, all the way up until college, you never lived in the same home again with Nicole and your mother.
No.
Because after you ran away at 15, you stayed with your grandmother, finished high school, and then went to the Air Force, I believe, right after high school, you said.
Right.
Your brother Kevin, prior to his death, had also left home to go into the military at age 18. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that during your childhood, or at least most of your childhood, you had your brother Kevin to lean on?
Yes.
You all were close in age, a year or so apart.
Yes.
But by the time all of this is happening and you've run away, Kevin's joined the military, Nicole's pretty much by herself.
Yes.
Let's talk about your sister as a child. You remember her as an outgoing kid when
Yes.
she was little. Loved to dance,
Yep.
sing,
Yes.
put on shows for everybody. Is that a fair description of your sister when she was little?
Yes.
I want to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 3A and 3B, and tell me if you recognize these photos and what they are.
Yeah. Pictures of us.
Is that what you remember Nicole being as a young child, happy, the way you've just described her?
Yes.
Judge, at this time I'd introduce Defense Exhibit 3A and 3B.
Any objections at this time?
No objection.
So be it made.
Permission to publish?
You may publish.
Tell us who's in this photograph.
On the left, my friend Jeff, my sister on my lap, and then my brother Kevin.
If you know, and I know it's hard to look at pictures, but about how old do you think Nicole is in this picture?
I'm guessing about 2 or 3.
Defense 3B. Who's that?
Myself and my sister.
About how old do you think maybe she is there?
I guess 4, 3 or 4.
So as a young child, you remember Nicole, what we see in those photographs, a happy kid. And then at some point, you see a change in her. About what grade do you recall the change happening where Nicole just wasn't that bubbly, happy kid anymore?
I'd say around middle school.
And when you say middle school, because middle school can mean different things for different people, elementary, middle,
Like
about what
6th
grade?
grade, I think.
Describe for the jury what kind of changes you began to see in Nicole around that time.
She became very introverted, not outgoing at all. She used to sing and dance in front of strangers. She just stopped doing that. She started dressing just much more conservatively and flat colors. She wasn't wearing the bright colors and things like that she used to. Pretty quiet, kind of escaped to her. I don't know if she had a laptop back then, but she was always drawing things and things like that, and would kind of just go to that.
What about her feelings about her self-image or self-conscious?
Yeah, very. What I took is low self-esteem. Very low self-esteem.
Let's talk about middle school and on. Do you recall Nicole ever having friends where, you heard she had a sleepover maybe? And I know you're not living in the home, but you had indicated you're still having direct contact with both Nicole and your mom at times. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and we're talking about middle school still?
Well,
Okay.
at any point, ever remember Nicole talking about, friends she's having over for sleepovers or birthday parties or anything like that? Anything you remember about friends?
Dude, she had one go-to friend a lot, and I don't remember her name or anything, but there was basically one friend. That I
One
remember.
friend, her entire childhood as you remember it.
Yes.
Now, at some point when you noticed the changes that you've just described in Nicole, and maybe, this issue about friends or not having friends, was she also reporting anything about bullying or people picking on her at school?
Yeah. Yes.
And did you in fact bring that up to the family? Because now you're not living in Tampa, but did you bring up your concerns or your observations to family members?
About the bullying specifically, or her
In general,
self-esteem?
I'm seeing things different in my sister, whether it be the bullying, the self-conscious. Did you tell anybody in the family?
Yes.
Okay. And your mom's response?
She just needs to work on her self-esteem.
Objection, hearsay.
I'll sustain as to the specific, don't testify to what someone else said.
Did your mom get her any counseling?
Nothing enough.
Did your mom intervene or attempt to address the issues that you voiced to her about the observations you were making about your sister as you sit here today?
Nothing enough.
You, in fact, used the word counseling when describing your concerns to the family, isn't that right? That she needed counseling.
Yeah, I might have said see someone or talk to somebody. Yeah.
Which could be counseling, it could be a guidance counselor, it could be anybody.
Right.
And again, no, as you sit here today, you're not aware of either your mother, or your grandmother, or anyone in the family, and I understand you're away, actually taking that step after your recommendation and actually taking Nicole to see somebody or have her talk to somebody.
Nothing enough.
Do you know how many different schools your sister went to?
Yeah, 14 or 13.
And we're talking about not counting FSU, but 13 different schools from age, when you start kindergarten at 5 until you graduate high school, let's say 18.
Right.
That's 13 years of life and 13 different schools your sister attended.
Yes.
Is it fair to say when your mom wanted your sister to do something, she did it?
Yes.
Was your sister someone who was good at speaking up or going against your mom, or would do as your mom said?
Usually just do what my mom said.
Did the phrase "don't tell mom" become a common phrase your sister used with everybody? You, the family, don't tell mom.
I don't want to say common, but she's told me a couple times, don't tell mom about whatever.
As far as your mom's behavior towards your sister when it came to her weight or her appearance, you're aware that your mom had your sister get liposuction?
Yes.
And that was not because your sister was like grossly obese and weighed 300 pounds. Your sister's never been grossly obese, correct?
No.
Your mom made your sister get LASIK? Or was about to make her get LASIK?
She wanted her to get LASIK, yeah.
And as far as you understood, your sister was extremely nervous, scared, and not really wanting to get LASIK.
Yeah, she didn't want anything touching her eyes.
The fat shaming or the comments sometimes would come with regard to your sister's weight, and again, things you didn't understand because your sister wasn't obese.
I don't remember her making comments specifically about the weight, more just make sure she's running and, eating properly and things like that.
So your sister would share with you that mom's making me run,
I think so, yeah.
and it was miles.
Yes.
And you knew that to mean because of your mom believed she was overweight.
Yes.
And it's not like your sister was the athletic type, you'd agree?
Right.
She's not the track star or the runner who would run for enjoyment.
Not that I know of.
Now, at some point, your mom marries Bob, and I think it's in 2004.
Yes.
So Nicole would have been about 10,
Yes.
and you, in fact, didn't even meet Bob until after your mom and him had married.
Correct.
And this was all while they were living in Virginia.
Yes.
And they were obviously married until his death in 2015, so about 11 years.
Yes.
And you met Bob in those 11 years about 4 times.
Yes.
You knew nothing about Bob's family.
Yeah.
Never really saw Bob and your sister interact.
No.
It's not like Bob was taking an active role in the upbringing of your sister, as far as you knew.
As far as I knew. Yeah.
You talked about the changes you started to observe in your sister around middle school. I want to talk to you a little bit about high school. Were you aware that your sister had her own apartment when she was 17, attending Sickles High School here in Tampa?
No.
You didn't know that until this case, is that correct?
It might have been brought up that she was living in an apartment, but I probably just assumed my mom was there with her.
But the fact that it was alone in an apartment by herself for her high school last year or so was not something that you were aware of.
No.
And your family, the Lears at least, your grandmother still lived in Tampa at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Bob lived in the house in Carrollwood at the time.
I think so.
And Eric and your uncles all were in Tampa, but yet your sister, for whatever reason, had an apartment by herself while she was at Sickles. Is that your understanding now?
Yeah, everybody lived there.
So everybody lived in Tampa, yet she was by herself in an apartment. And what I mean by
I'm assuming
herself,
because that's what I've been told. I mean, I can't verify that, but
now when you were keeping in contact with Nicole for the visits that you described, where it would be summertime or things like that, again, she still was not, and I want to finish on through middle school and high school, she's still not that bubbly, happy kid you remember.
no.
At the times that you're interacting with her during those breaks, you're having to drag her places with your family.
Yes.
In fact, in 2011, which Nicole would have been about 17,
15 or 16, yeah.
okay, your mom actually wanted to send Nicole to live with you in New York.
Yes.
And that didn't happen.
Correct.
And why is that?
My mom wanted she wanted her to live with me, and I was all for it, but she wanted a very specific school district and a very specific type of house and very specific type of neighborhood, and I was like, that's way more than I can afford. So I said, I can do it. I either need help or you're just going to have to let me go somewhere else that I can afford. And so ultimately she didn't come up with me.
So that was in 2011 when your mom wanted to send Nicole to live with you up in New York.
Yes.
And where was your mom living at the time, or what was the reason she needed you to take Nicole?
Honestly, I don't know if she was down in Tampa or she was in Virginia.
And in fact, you and your mom didn't speak for several years after that because of that.
A few years, yeah.
And that was because you had basically turned her down or refused to do what she asked you to do.
I'm assuming I never found out why she was upset.
Well, common sense would say.
It was the last thing we talked about, so. Yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as your sister attending Florida State, based on the observations you had seen up to that point of Nicole, when you would visit, she's 18, getting ready to graduate high school and going off to college. From what you could observe, was she somebody who was capable of caring for herself away at school alone without any supervision?
No.
Was she someone who knew how to pay bills?
No.
Have the electricity turned on?
No.
Someone who could function in adult daily life up at college by herself?
No.
The times that she would visit you, would you have to actually tell her when to take a shower?
Yes.
And if you didn't, she would go days without showering.
Yes.
After she gets to college, it's your understanding that your mom chose Nicole's degree, is that correct?
Yes.
And that this fear Nicole had of your mom about disappointing or meeting her expectations is still going on in college.
Yes.
It's not something that's gone away.
Can you say the question again? I'm sorry.
This fear your sister had, you had said earlier, of meeting your mom's expectations or
yes.
disappointing her, all that's still happening now when we're at Florida State and in college. You'd agree?
Yes.
Now, the summer before your mom and Bob's death, you had indicated your sister came to stay with you for about 3 weeks or a month.
Yes.
Mr. Terry had asked you whether Nicole during those few weeks had ever voiced any concerns to you. And I think your answer was just the typical concerns, bullying and things like that at school.
I'm trying to remember. Usually that was nothing out of the ordinary, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, just to clarify, when you say out of the ordinary, to most people bullying would be a big deal. You'd agree?
Yes.
When you say out of the ordinary, these are things your sister has endured her whole life, so for you, they're out of the ordinary.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't even know why I said bullying. I'm trying to think of any complaints specifically during that visit. And if I have a past comment, then sure, I just for some reason can't remember.
Well,
right
in
now.
college general, you were aware of bullying, like her roommates throwing her mattress in the hallway and things like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
But I guess what I'm trying to clarify is when you say Nicole's not voicing anything out of the ordinary, these were things she had endured and experienced pretty much her entire childhood. So to you, they were out of the ordinary.
Yes.
Because it was, oh, Nicole's getting bullied again. Her roommates are putting her stinky mattress out in the hallway.
Yes.
Okay. The time that she's staying with you that summer, though, again, she's not bathing unless told to.
Right.
Correct? She would leave in the middle of the night and walk to, I guess, some store down where you live to buy, like, junk food.
Yes.
And you even had a comment or a discussion with her and said, Nicole, I'll go to the store and buy you what you want.
Right.
But in her mind, she had to go out in the middle of the night to get this snack or this food she wanted.
Yeah, she didn't want to drive. She just wanted to walk and buy it herself.
She would also then, after buying the junk food, despite you talking to her that it's okay, hide the wrappers.
Yes.
You also recall her using her laptop that visit in summer of 2015, correct?
Yes.
And at times you would hear or see her talking to it.
It was just that one incident we were talking about where the laptop was open. I heard giggling, and I looked in, maybe some mumbling, but I just assumed she was talking out loud to whatever she was talking to online, like chat room or whatever.
Now, as far as your mom and Bob's death, I want to move to that week. And you had indicated earlier, so Nicole stayed with you about 3 weeks to a month, and then came back to Tampa and stayed with your mom up until college was going to begin for the new semester.
I think so, yes.
And I believe you said, and I don't know if you said the date, if you remember what day that week is when you realized you have all the missed calls and texts from your family as if something was wrong.
I don't remember the specific day. It was the morning of that everything happened.
So like the 21st of August,
Sure.
after Nicole had already gone to school and the same day of the phone
Yes.
calls. Okay.
Yes.
Now, one of the things you understood from your family when you initially called them back, because your initial concern is Nicole.
Yes.
How is she going to handle this? How is she going to react?
Yes.
And so your understanding is your family had actually told Nicole that your mom was in an accident.
Yes.
And just because they didn't want her driving thinking, I guess, there was a death in the family and
Right.
she may panic. So everyone is concerned about how Nicole is going to handle such a traumatic thing.
Yeah, she's driving from Tallahassee. We didn't want to give her bad news like that.
And that's when you had indicated you start looking for flights for yourself and for Nicole from Tallahassee to Tampa.
Yes.
So you call your sister kind of initially just to discuss the travel and let her know, hey, listen, I'm looking for flights, everything's gonna be okay.
Yes.
And I think you testified when Mr. Terry asked you that when she answers the phone, her comment to you is when you say, "Are you okay, Nicole?" So she now knows, or at least believes in your mind, that your mom's been in some sort of accident.
Correct.
In your mind, she already knows that now people are making travel arrangements, so it must be serious.
Yes.
Because you're not going to come from Washington if your mom has a scrape on her wrist, right?
Well, I mean, I was still operating with, I'm pretending that I know there's an accident as well, and we don't know her status, but it's serious. So I just kind of played that role.
My point is, even if you were to believe that Nicole believed it was an accident, it's serious because you're now making travel arrangements for her and you to fly there.
Yes.
And her response to that initial phone call is, "Hi, Joey, like everything's normal."
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was, yeah, like that.
And when I use the word normal, not normal to someone who had just found out something was wrong. She was not acting normal.
Not that
Under the circumstances.
Under the circumstances, correct.
You then tell her, "I'm going to call you back, Nicole," because you wanted to really spend time talking to her and making sure she was okay.
Yes,
And you want to continue looking at flights and get the flight before you lose the flight.
correct.
So it's about 30 minutes or so when you call her back.
20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, sure.
And that's when she tells you, "I'm going to miss you."
Yes.
You immediately go to, what is she talking about? Is she going to hurt herself, commit suicide, or do something like that?
Right.
And that's when she says, "I did it, I shot him." And she says it in like a whisper voice.
Yes.
After she tells you that, she then begins crying hysterically.
Yes.
And now she's talking and you're not being able to make sense of anything she's saying.
Correct.
And so we're clear as far as the time frame. This is August 21st, that Friday. About what time do you think this conversation is happening in the morning?
I'm gonna guess around 7:45, 8 o'clock.
Your time, what would it have been in Tampa time? Eastern.
10:45, 11 o'clock.
Okay. Late morning of Friday the 21st for us, a little earlier for you.
Yes.
And when she starts crying and is talking crazy, it's nothing you can even comprehend.
Yes.
She then tells you, "If I had only gotten the news about the dorms earlier, I wouldn't have had to do it."
Yes.
You now know that she had not secured a dorm in time.
Now, yes. I know
Okay.
now.
And that's what she was talking about.
Yes.
But at the time she tells you that, you have no idea what is she saying that I wouldn't have had to shoot him if I had only gotten the dorm.
Right.
You'd agree that her not securing a dorm in time would have been something that angered your mother.
Yes.
It would have been a very big mistake, issue, ordeal in your mother's eyes.
Yeah.
She then tells you that she's had screaming in her head since London and things were really bad.
Yes.
She describes pressure or feeling pressure.
Yes.
Now, your sister studied abroad in London in 2013, correct? Her freshman year?
I think so.
Okay. So this is 2015, so the screaming she's describing to you, if the time frame's right, is going on for about 2 years.
Correct.
She also described not being able to sleep and having nightmares since that time frame.
Yes.
She told you that she didn't think she could shoot Bob, but that after she did, she went and sat on her bed and the screaming had gone away a little bit,
Yes.
but that the screaming was still there.
Yes.
She then told you that she had wanted to jump out of her bedroom window to avoid seeing your mom or having contact with your mom that evening.
Yes.
After shooting Bob.
Correct.
But that she mistimed it and your mom confronts her in the driveway.
Yes.
Now, you used the word confront back when you spoke to law enforcement right after this happened. Is that your recollection of what Nicole told you, that it was a confrontation between her and your mom in the driveway?
No, literally what my sister said was she ran into her in the driveway and said, "Nikki, what the fuck are you doing here?"
Do you want to look at your statement that you gave to Detective Messer on August 26th of 15 and how you described this confrontation? Would that refresh your memory as to what she said?
I mean, you can tell me what said. Maybe I used the word confront. I mean, I don't mean confront as in a challenge. It was the way she portrayed it to me on the phone was a question. So if she felt confronted or challenged, maybe that's something else. But the way it was portrayed to me was it was a question.
What do you mean a question?
Well, she's surprised that she's there. So what are you doing here?
Well, you said to Detective Messer, you told me you wanted me to tell you, and my mom confronted her about being there, and then you asked Detective Messer, do you want verbatim cussing? And that's when you said, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yes.
That's how you described it to Detective Messer back in August of 2015, that it was your mom confronting her about why is she there.
So I want to be careful about saying confronting in terms of like anger. The way it was told to me on the phone, the way I remember it wasn't really an anger question. My mom liked to cuss a lot, sorry. But what the fuck are you doing here?
Is what the fuck you're doing here, are you indicating as an inviting term for somebody to take that as I guess a happy question?
No.
And the fact that your sister would have been at the house when she's supposed to be at college would have been a problem in your mom's mind, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not making this out to be the way your sister describes it is. She's basically being caught at the house when she's not supposed to be there, correct?
Yes.
And your mom says, what the fuck are you doing here?
Correct. But I just don't take it as anger because there could be a million reasons why she's there. The whole conversation with my sister talking to me about why she's there in the first place tells me that there didn't need to be a confrontation.
There didn't need. In your mind. We're not in your mind. We're in your sister's mind.
Right. So in my mind, it didn't come across as confrontational. It came across as a question.
Okay. What the fuck are you doing here? As in, like, that's a happy, inviting comment.
No, it's not.
Are you-
Asking answers.
Sustained. Let's move on.
She actually described to your sister that she mistimed jumping out the window and your mom getting there.
Yes.
Okay, and that's how this, we won't use the word confrontation if you don't want, but that's how this meeting in the driveway happened, because she mistimed jumping out the window and then your mom basically sees her in the driveway.
Yes.
Your sister also told you that when she drove to Tallahassee, you described these signs she saw in her dorm
No, she described it being at the dorm.
and seeing signs.
Yes.
As if the signs were talking to her in some way or sending her a message.
She saw the signs and felt like that was reassurance that she needed to go back and finish it.
Almost like it was meant to happen.
Yes.
She also told you during that conversation that it was like a weight had been lifted off of her shoulders.
Yes.
Now, you had indicated, and going back to the exact statements and the sequence of events, it's obviously been 4 years. Yes?
Yes.
And as far as the sequence of the terms and exactly the wording she used isn't exactly 100% imaged in your head. Is that fair to say?
My sisters?
Yes.
Yes.
As far as the order of things, her exact wording, not
Correct.
something you remember completely as you sit here today.
Correct.
But in August of 2015, when you're interviewed by law enforcement, it's a lot more fresher, and there's a transcribed interview of what you remember Nicole telling you at that time.
Yes.
Now, after you hang up with Nicole, you talk to the family, and you all decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to get her a lawyer, or are we going to help her? And the decision is made to help her.
Yes.
And so this is you and your uncles kind of collectively talking.
Yes.
And you call her back and you actually advise her ask for an attorney when the law enforcement officer or the detective comes up there.
Yes,
And don't talk to them without an attorney.
correct.
And your sister is somebody who's going to take your advice. Or listen to you as her older brother.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit more about that interview with law enforcement. When you were interviewed by Detective Messer on August 26th, that happened back in 15. That happened at your grandmother's house.
Yes,
Because they waited for you to arrive in Tampa and then they conducted an interview here. Correct?
yes,
And when you were interviewed by Detective Messer, you in fact relayed this fear your sister had of your mom.
yes,
In fact, you used the terms, your sister was scared to death of your mom.
yes,
Anything in life that your mom didn't approve of, your sister feared.
yes,
You told Detective Messer that in fact your sister was like a child when it came to your mom.
yes,
And that after she's talking to you and telling you what she's done, she didn't appear to really grasp the seriousness of the situation.
Can you say that one more time?
As she's talking to you and even after the event, it was like being arrested didn't seem like a big deal to her. That was your
she's-
impression.
Right.
She wasn't grasping the seriousness of the situation she was in.
She felt relieved.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 12 and tell me if you recognize that and how you recognize it.
Yes, the visitation video.
Okay. That's, and your initials are on that?
Yes,
And you viewed that disc prior to today?
yes,
And is that a fair and accurate depiction of the jail visit that you had with your sister shortly after her arrest in 2015?
yes.
Judge, at this time, I'd introduce Defense Exhibit 12,
Any objection? No objection. To be admitted,
permission to publish.
you may publish.
Just to put it in context for the jury, after she's arrested, she's at the jail and you're getting ready to go back and you actually conduct a jail face-to-face visit with her.
Yes,
And she's now in jail charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the death of your mom and Bob. Yes?
yes,
And this is the visitation that comes right before you're gonna leave.
yes.
Hey, Joey.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Are you?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been eating somewhat healthy. I mean, 3 times a day. I have no problems looking in the mirror. I actually weighed myself and I wasn't even scared. I had no problems looking in the mirror and stuff, and I've been able, and my head's been clear, and, no stress, no anxiety. Been able to sleep better.
That's good. Just to let you know before, because I'm not sure how long this stuff will last. I think
It's like 40 minutes, yeah.
Okay, well, I added more money to the calling fund,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, so they can call me collect, but I only have enough for 3 calls.
That's
'Cause I
fine.
didn't know that first one, I didn't know that first time you called me was only 1 minute. I
It didn't even feel a minute.
thought it was just like at least 5-10 minutes, but just to let you know, if you need to call me again, I got 3 calls on there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's at least for 15 minutes apiece. So, it's kind of expensive, so try not to use it just
I won't.
emergencies.
Emergencies.
Yeah, and then definitely if you need to call me, tell me the important stuff first.
Yeah. And I can always write to you too.
Yeah, I got the address here too on how to do it. I gotta get like your booking number and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can give it to you right now if you want.
Well, they don't give me anything to write with. Is it long?
No, it's only 8 numbers. And yeah.
Better save it for the next phone call because I can't write down anything of this.
That's fine. So how's the kids in Katia?
They're fine. They're back in Washington now. He's supposed to start his Strong Beginnings preschool thing in about another week.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Is he at the age where he's into superheroes right now?
No, he doesn't quite understand them yet. He's still watching like regular cartoons. He likes movies where there's action scenes, like Ninja Turtles, but he doesn't quite understand.
Oh,
What
well.
going on.
I know my favorite superhero.
Who's that?
You. Movie Charles Xavier comes close.
Thanks. Compared to a crippled ball guy.
Well, hey, he gets to tell other superheroes what to do.
Yeah. So are you with other people or are you by yourself?
I mean, there's no security guards, I guess.
No, I mean like in your cell.
Oh, by myself, yeah.
Okay. Are they talking about putting you with like other people?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Probably better off anyway.
You're okay by yourself for a while?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'm just making sure. I don't know what life is like in there for you. Okay.
It's not too bad.
And I can't stay too long because remember I was telling you yesterday.
Yeah, I know you're busy. I just try to get a call. It's really hard last time.
Yeah. No, so I'm moving some things around so I can be here, but I gotta leave somewhat soon. Probably next 10 or 15 minutes. I can't stay on for 40 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I can't talk for 40 minutes either.
Yeah. What kind of food do they give you?
It's usually sandwiches and stuff.
Okay.
So it's actually pretty good. I just been eating junk food before, so it's finally good to get some healthy stuff.
Okay. Yeah. They have this thing called eye care packages. I don't know if they talked to you about it.
I saw like an envelope about it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like goodies or
If you could send other
deodorant.
things.
I don't know if it's like candy or if it's personal products or a combination of both or whatever. But I'll look into doing that so we can send you some stuff randomly and put some money in your canteen. I don't know what kind of stuff you can buy with that, but maybe magazines.
Yeah. I think I got some stuff. I saw the list. It's mostly like food and personal hygiene stuff.
Okay, well, so would you want some of that?
I think I ordered some already from the other thing you sent from the other canteen you sent, I think.
Yeah, but when they transferred it, they said that most, except for $50 in there, and between both of the facilities, processing fees and all that kind of crap, it's like $4 left in there, I think.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I gotta look up how to deposit into his broken. But
Yeah, we probably should have waited, I guess. I didn't think I'd be, because I got the canteen over there around the day the next day I had to leave, so it's like, I'm putting for
yeah,
nothing.
I'm worried because I wanted you to get it quick so you can get some warm underwear because he said it was cold in there, but I guess they got you out of it pretty quick, so it wasn't too big a deal.
Yeah.
So, alright. Everything else okay?
Yeah, everything actually fine. I've been reading, so they have books here.
Reading material? Good.
Yeah, so yeah, I was hoping. I wish I could. They at the Barnes and Nobles they have these like books, maybe the size of novels, but they like novel-sized books, but they're for writing. It'd be nice to get one of those to write something, like write a story. I like to write.
So they'll let you have pencils and pens and stuff?
Oh yeah, I can get that too.
Okay, yeah, because I get you, maybe we can get a notepad or something so you can do your drawings again,
Yeah, I just or like a notebook to write stories. Cause I've been reading these books, so I've been writing.
Okay, good.
I know this is weird. I just feel so much better, and I'm really glad you were able to make it talk for me for a few minutes.
Yeah, because I have to leave tomorrow, and and this would be like the last, I was hoping to be able to see you at least once before I left, to make sure to check on you.
I was, thinking, like, I just kept thinking that, once I get out of here, get a job and, get you guys some gifts, get you something nice. Maybe, I want to.
No, I understand, but, don't worry, but don't talk about the case or anything.
Right, I'm not, I'm just saying. I asked her if I could talk about, like, after everything.
Yeah, okay, let's see what else. I'm staying with David the past couple days. They
How's
just had a
David?
baby. They just had
Oh, yeah.
Madison, cute, very cute baby,
Aww.
yeah.
So, did you want to talk yet?
Adrian, she says like apple, and she calls me mommy. She calls us both mommy.
Joey, is there something you're not telling me?
I know, it's like giving me a complex. No,
Where's the pants?
she's having a lot of fun though. She just had a birthday, so
Oh,
yeah, they went back Wednesday or last Wednesday, and then I go back tomorrow. So yeah.
you should write to me when it's their birthday so I can, write back. It's because I don't have the address.
Yeah, that's all right. Next time you end up calling me, I'll get the booking number so I can. Or I might be able to get the booking number on the way out or something.
Yeah, I'm sure you can ask. I can tell you some numbers and see if you can remember it. Just, oh yeah, it usually does.
Yeah, I'm sure they have all the information.
And if not, they can always meet with me and I can just relay all the information to you.
Yeah. Other than that, what's your cell look like? You have a little toilet?
Yeah, middle of the toilet. I got there's a bar in there so I can stretch and stuff. Mirror is pretty big, so I was like, at first I thought I was gonna be uncomfortable looking in it, but I'm like, oh, I look nice,
Yeah. Do they let you out to exercise or anything?
So far I haven't really been out except maybe to shower kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it scheduled times?
If there, I think there is, but I'm just not sure because depending on who keeps walking by, sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they're really not. And that's why I had trouble with the paper because this person was talking about how I need to write your name on a piece of paper, and I asked if she could provide it, and then I thought she was, and then an hour later I asked what's the update, and she's like, I'm not here to supply you with pencil and paper. You're supposed to write it. Like, I don't have any pencil and paper. Like, what's that? That's mail. I don't have, that's stuff people wrote to me. I don't even have a pencil or any paper. And she kind of didn't believe me. She kind of rolled her eyes and walked off. So, you gotta be careful. But another sheriff, when I talked to my, one of the security guys was nice enough to leave the paper with it on my desk. So that's why I had trouble, but it's kind of I got the paper until after, I was done with my thing.
Alright, so are you okay with your daily routine and all that?
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
You getting adjusted?
Yeah, just, been sleeping comfortably. Like I said, I even weighed myself and I don't feel too bad about it. I'm supposedly 137, usually I'm supposed to be 100 apparently, according to somebody, and so, I know, but it really did eat, but it doesn't really eat out of me anymore, so I'm I'm feeling so much better.
Do you have any questions?
No, but I think about that. What was that thing about the care packet thing? I can, like I said, if I have anything, I can tell. I would like to write something. Maybe write a story and then send it to you. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Alright.
You let the creative juices out of your head.
I know, but I have to do. But since it's kind of hard because most readers have to do research. I wish I had a history textbook to read. No, she had me change, mom had me change it to international affairs.
Well, that's the one I wanted you to get.
Yeah, it was,
That
yeah.
one you could actually do more with it. But that
Honestly, you know, when in high school I was thinking of psychology or forensics, but she said no.
well, you know,
Yeah.
as long as you got something that you could work with when you
Yeah.
get out, when you
Yeah.
graduate. So who knows? Maybe you become a good writer in there. You know, whatever you want to do. That's the whole point. Is do what you want to do to be happy.
Right.
If you want to be a writer, be a writer. If you really want to do a history degree, get your history degree.
Right.
But do what makes you happy, because that's something you gotta live with your life.
I know.
So
I definitely don't know.
practice writing, huh?
I definitely don't know kind of thing.
Yeah. So you practice your writing, practice drawing again, practice. Can you guys watch movies in there at all? Can you get movies?
Sometimes we put a portion of the movie on. It's usually closer to the end kind of thing, but, you know, better than nothing. But I usually read books now.
Hey, do you have a clock over there, like a time?
Oh, I wish, no. I have to ask the people for time, and like I said, depending on who you ask, you know, they're nice, and then they're, you don't need another time, like, oh, yeah, but, you know, I'm here.
I gotta be somewhere pretty soon.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. I think I got everything out of the way.
Probably got like 2-3 more minutes at least, though.
Well, like I said, I can just talk. If I have any questions or need to say something,
You have hair products in there? You look like your hair's like moosed or
that's probably the hair products. That's okay.
all natural grease.
Probably all natural grease from, probably from the leftovers of the food.
Thank you.
Hey, I actually like my hair now.
No, it's nice. You look nice.
I know.
You look rested. You look like you're
My skin
good
got
spirit.
better.
It's just the process could take a while.
I know. Yeah, my skin's gotten better too.
I'm just hoping you don't go kind of crazy in there.
Oh, I don't think I can.
You're better. You feel better in there.
Yeah, I do.
All right. Any other questions? Anything?
Nope. I can always, like I said, I can always, you know, tell things that's something important.
Okay.
All right. And I probably need I think I got a letter from George. He wanted me to. He sent a letter telling me to put him on the list or something like that. But I don't know his address. I think it said George Lair or J. Lair, yeah, Kenny, but I don't know his. Yeah, I don't think it said his address.
Was your letter asking to put him on the visitation list?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to, like I said, when I was doing the form, I had trouble with the form, just with you, but, I think it didn't, I don't think his birthday was on there or something like that, you know, I don't think he had that much.
He needs his phone number too, right?
I think he puts his phone number down, but it's like, I also want him to know about what not to talk about and to talk about kind of thing, that's fine.
So I'll talk to Kenny and find out and let him know that that's why you can't schedule next. We need his number, his birthday, and I have the paper here that tells me all that too.
Yeah.
But you're gonna need it, right? You need
Yeah,
his
I'm
phone
gonna do
number?
it. Yeah, because I think I saw his phone
Is there a
number.
way you can write all this stuff down?
Well, he sent me a postcard with his stuff. He sent a postcard. Yeah, he sent a postcard with his number on it at least.
Oh, but he was missing something?
I think I was missing something like his birthday and address.
But it's something it's in yourself?
Yeah, it's myself. Yeah, it's with me.
Okay, well,
All he
I'll
needs to do
tell
is
him
something.
everything he needs. He can send it again with absolutely everything on there.
Yeah.
That way you can schedule a visit. So it's good that he wants to come visit you. I don't know if he wanted to. I don't know.
How's Grandma doing?
You know, she's okay. Obviously she was upset. But we got family everywhere that's getting everybody through everything, so.
And Eric?
You know, same thing. Same
Okay.
thing. Just, let's not even talk about that.
Alright.
Alright?
Alright.
Okay, I guess that's pretty much everything. I'll try and look into the eye care package. We love you. We all love you. And we'll keep praying.
Yeah, I should just, gone military after high school.
Just don't even talk.
I know. Alright, I should probably go.
Okay, alright, Nikki, love you.
Alright, love you too.
I'll send you some stuff. I don't know if it's sooner rather than later, I'm not sure, I gotta look into how
I'm
much.
very patient, you know. I have most of my stuff. Well, I no choice. I got plenty of stuff to last me a while.
Okay.
And it's not like you're, you know, I'm paying to be fit, so it's kind of like, so it's like a meeting.
Yeah.
Eating and
Keep
reading.
eating, keep doing your daily routine,
Mm-hmm.
just keep praying and do your stuff, okay?
I am.
Alright, Nikki.
Alright, see you, Joey. Or
Talk
talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
So a couple of just things to recap from that video. Obviously you were visiting her after her arrest for the 2 counts of murder.
Yes.
And she's describing to you how her head is clear now.
Yes.
She basically says that she's feeling no stress and no anxiety
Yes.
despite being in jail.
Yes.
And at this point, she,
With the question, I had asked that she ask questions. She's just restating what was stated on the
All right,
evidence.
ask the question.
what do you recall her describing about how she's feeling while she's in jail?
She felt happy. Can look in the mirror, relieved.
Do you recall her also discussing the weight issues and how she just felt good about herself?
Yes.
I want to ask you about the portion, if you recall, about her telling you when she gets out what she was going to do for you and your family.
Yes.
What do you recall her saying?
From the video,
Yes.
she was gonna buy us presents and get a job and yeah, basically that.
So even a week or two up until after her arrest, she still thinks she's at some point going to get out and be able to still interact with the family and
Yes.
be in society, basically.
Yes.
I want to ask you kind of a little bit about the current situation of the family. Since, I guess, the incident, there's some members of your family that aren't speaking right now. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
You haven't spoken to your grandmother Miriam in about 2 years?
I spoke to her last week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Prior to last week, how long had it been since you spoke to her?
Probably a couple of years. Yeah.
And you spoke to her because you had come down for the trial?
Yes.
And you also haven't spoken to your Uncle Eric?
Correct.
If I can have a moment?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Carey.
Thank you.
Redirect?
Yes, Judge. Can we approach?
Yes. before the redirect, because it's going to take a little longer. So it's 11 o'clock. We'll go ahead and take about a 10 or 15-minute break, and then we'll come back and do the redirect. Please do not discuss the case amongst yourselves or anyone else. Please do not do any research related to the case, and please avoid any exposure to the case outside of the courtroom. All rise for the jury. Jury's exited. Everyone may be seated. You may step down. We're going to do will be a recess for about 10-15 minutes. Please don't discuss the case with any of the attorneys unless all the attorneys are present.